Welcome, you know, to another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast, where we talk about Latino everything. I'm your host, Crispin Valentin. Make sure you go and subscribe to the channel right now. Why? You got nothing to lose and lots to gain. Like this amazing story we're about to share with you. A Ballet Folklórico dancer, Claudia Tiffany, shares her amazing story. Get inspired. Learn all the things that she's done at such a young age. And I guarantee you're going to leave with inspiration. Definitely. And now to the episode. Hola, Claudia.
Hola.
How you doing today?
Pretty good, and you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. I know you had a good drive. I know sometimes traffic gets a little crazy, but thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm super excited as well because my goodness, we're going to know all about her story because she's got super talented and a whole lot more things that she's done. It's just like, wow, where do you find the time? 24 hours, and I think she uses 22.2, and then sometimes she gets a little sleep. Pero before that, we're going to go ahead and do a segment that I like to call Preguntas al Chile. If you have not subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? You got nothing to lose, but you got lots to gain. Amazing motivation, amazing story. So this is the time. Go subscribe right now. ¿Estás lista? Are you ready?
Yes, estoy lista.
¿Tacos o tortas?
¿Tacos o tortas? Tortas.
Tortas. Okay. What is your favorite torta?
A simple one de jamón y queso.
Jamón
and
y queso.
aguacate.
Como el chavo.
Sí.
Corn tortilla or flour tortillas?
Flour.
Absolutely. Gorditas or pupusas?
Pupusas.
Pupusas. Okay. Jarritos. ¿Qué sabor de jarrito? What
Piña.
flavor? Piña. Ooh, a piña with a torta. Goes so good.
Gosh.
Goes so good. Horchata, jamaica o agua de tamarindo?
Horchata.
Salsa verde, salsa roja.
Verde.
Enchiladas or chilaquiles?
Chilaquiles.
Menudo or pozole?
I don't eat either.
You don't eat either?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Is there a particular reason? You just not your thing? Not soups?
No, not soups, but yeah, not soups.
Cool.
Not soup person.
Cool. Valentina Tapatío Cholula. En Tapatío. Yeah.
Valentina.
The black label? There's a red label, the black label, or a gold label. And
The
one
gold
is more
one.
spicier.
The
Yeah.
gold one. With popcorn? Ooh.
Cumbia, salsa, merengue, or bachata dancing if you're not doing folklorico.
Cumbia.
Cumbia.
Mm-hmm.
A conspiracy theory. This is not even close to the same line of questions, but I think it's fun. A conspiracy theory that you heard one time, when you heard, you're like, that has to be true. Or that could be true. What would that be?
A conspiracy theory?
See. Do you care for any of those?
Not necessarily. I just go by like the day-to-day basis. Like if there's like a new conspiracy theory, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. But not necessarily one. Not that I can think of.
What was the latest one that you heard?
The latest one that I've heard, conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
Great question. Well, the one that always pops in my head is you know how McDonald's, they have like their ice cream machines are always broken, and it was like the conspiracy theory that McDonald's does it on purpose, and I think they do.
And what is the reason they do it?
Because apparently it's more of the tech side of it, of like how the machine is like built, if that makes sense. I think they changed it already, but basically in order to like fix the machinery, whatever it's called, they have to call like a certain tech, and that certain tech comes to fix it, you know. But it's I guess I'm not necessarily sure how it ties in the conspiracy theory. There's more to it, but basically it's more of like profit wise, you know.
If you know about it, let us know. If you heard about that conspiracy, there's too many people having the same story about going to McDonald's and having the same issue with the ice cream machine. So what is the end game? What is McDonald's trying to do to us whenever that happens?
I don't know.
And we already there. Are we just gonna drive away, or are we just gonna buy something? Give me a McDonald's anyways. Fine, that's, you know what I mean.
Might as well.
Might as well. When you hear the word Latino, Latina, Latinx, what is the very first things that come to mind for you?
I would say community. I would say community because when it comes to like even my culture and or more cultures, it's very like we try to be tight knit, like community, like family based, you know,
Absolutely.
like try to help help one another, you know. So that's what's the first thing I think of, community.
Awesome. Do you care if anybody calls you Latino, Latina? Do you prefer? Do you prefer Mexican American or whatever it would be?
Well, it gets, I would say it gets tricky because I'm not very like, oh, like, you know, how people are like very like, no, like call me for what I am, you know. I'm not very like one or the other for the same reason that I'm very open to like people's opinions, thoughts, you know. Because that's what I always tell people when it comes to like race, like, you know, like gender or like, you know, like religion.
Yeah.
I try not to touch base into it because I know people have like strong opinions, and I tend to be like in not the same level playing field, but a peacemaker in a way.
So more neutral.
More neutral.
So if people have this opinion, you respect it. People have that opinion, you respect it as well. You know who you are. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody. You don't have to like, you better call me this.
Exactly.
Okay, that's cool. All right, do you have any interesting stories? I don't know if you're Mexican American or what your heritage. I'm gonna assume without me just guessing. However, you have any interesting stories how your family made it to Fort Worth?
Well, yes, I am Mexican American. Interesting stories how my parents landed in Fort Worth. Not necessarily, however, it was more of like the story of like more like coming to the United States for like more opportunities, like a better life, if that makes sense. Because when it comes to my dad, he ended up coming to the United States, well, exactly in Fort Worth, for the same reason that back when he was in Mexico, my parents are from Monterrey, so like a city, northern, you know? And he came to Fort Worth for the same reason that he wanted to return back to school. And when he was in Mexico, he didn't like the job because he's, what's it called? My dad works in the cabinet. He makes custom cabinets.
Oh, awesome.
And he's been doing it since a very young age, since the age of like 8, you could say. And he's been doing it ever since, like till this day. And he was in school, like university level for architect, you could say. But at that time, he didn't have money to like continue his studies.
Right.
So that's when he decided to come to the United States in order to like make some money and then take it back to like Mexico and stuff like that. Things didn't turn out, and he stayed over here. And then 2 years later, my mom came over here with him.
It's so interesting because same thing for my father, and then my previous guest's dad. He came for a year, and then that year passed. And 20 plus years later, my dad is over 40 years plus later. They never went back. They came supposedly for a year. Like, I don't know how long the period of time was for your dad, but I'm pretty sure it was a short time to get some money and then get back. But you know,
I mean, it
life's
just happens,
nice here.
You know,
life is still nice here, easy. Because I don't know where he's from, but where I'm from, the Pueblito, you have to walk everywhere to get to the groceries or grow your own vegetables or raise your own chickens.
Oh, wow.
So things like that are like compared to everything that's here. That you just literally go to the grocery stores, everything's there.
See.
Pretty much everybody tiene carro, everybody has a car, so it's like
Yeah. No, I always grew frustration like living in the United States, like even before like even when I was doing Folklorico, I always would tell my parents, I'm like, why did y'all come to the United States? Like, everyone is so happy in Mexico, for the same reason that the times that I go to Mexico, I don't go too often. That's the issue, you know? And I would always bring it up to my parents. I'm like, why did y'all come to the United States? Like in this era is just puro stress, you know? Like, people are just working to, like, go to day-to-day basis, you know? Like, why come to the United States? Like, I should have been, like, una niña de Mexico. Like, I would always tell them, you know? And they're like, Tiffany, you'll one day understand, like, why, you know? And I was like, pues no entiendo. Like, I dance Ballet Folklórico. That's such a cool, like, pride over there, you know?
it is.
But, like, now, like, once now that I'm here in the place that I am, like, I'm like, well, it was meant to be, you know? Like, I really made my, like, a name within myself, within the United States, within Fort Worth, you know? So I was like, things played out, you know?
So Monterrey is beautiful, by the way. It's a beautiful place, a beautiful mountain places they have, very known for that. You know, in general, just it looks like it's a beautiful place, you know? So, okay. First of all, let me acknowledge your vestido.
Thank you.
Is that what it's called, or is there a particular name for it?
So, for example, this is un vestuario, you could say,
Vestuario.
from the region de Jalisco. Jalisco is very well known for being it's what's really predominant within the lo que es ballet folklórico. A lot of people, when they think of ballet folklórico, they think of Jalisco for the same reason that Jalisco, it's danced with like live music such as mariachi music,
Right.
and like the songs that are very well known or very traditionally like very cultural pride within like the Mexican heritage is El Son de la Negra or El Jarabe
Jarabe Tapatío.
which is dance with this cultural attire, you know. But basically, when it comes to my attire, they're custom made. That's another thing that a lot of people like are very surprised when they don't know what ballet folklórico is. Ballet folklórico or traditional dances from Mexico, and each dance or even each attire represents different regions of Mexico. So, like for example, this is from the region of Jalisco. When it comes to even the attire, there's a lot of fusions to it comes to it for the same reason that ballet folklórico has changed over the years. I like to categorize ballet folklórico in three, you could say. First, there's a traditional ballet folklórico, which was seen like in los pueblos, which was danced like in fiestas.
The one that Amelia Hernandez came with, that was later.
That's later.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
Traditionally, it's lo que se bailaba en los pueblos, you could say.
Okay.
There's the academic folklórico, which is now seen within like many universities in Mexico, which is more coordinated, more like okay, si es un zapateo de tres, it's like this, you know?
Okay.
And then there's the spectacular ballet folklórico, which is now what's known with Amalia Hernandez, where it's more, obviously they get the traditional, they get the academic folklórico, but they also add more to it for the same reason, to catch people's attention, if that makes sense. So like, for example, in Amalia Hernandez, what's very well known is like El Baile or El Son de la Morena, which is from the region of Veracruz. Traditionally in Veracruz, when it comes to skirt movement, it's supposed to be like in this type of level, so like below shoulder, you know?
Okay.
But like when you see spectacular folklórico, sometimes you see like the skirt works all the way up here. And that's where a lot of critiques comes in, where it's like, wait, like traditionally it's supposed to be here, but then if you're putting more of like the spectacular, then that's where it's open to interpretation as
In
well.
Veracruz, the dresses are mostly white, even the men, right?
Yes, but there's also another story to it as
okay.
well as spectacular. Back in the day, you could say when it comes like the attire has changed over the years, because there's Veracruz Fandango, which was more of like Pueblo, and there's Veracruz Jarocho, which is like the music component to it. Y'all could search it up as well. But when it comes to Jarocho, it's a lot of, or Jarocha, the music, like the music that's composed, it's what's it called, La Arpa, and as well like live singing, you know. But even when it comes to the attire, back in the day when it came to those fabrication of the dresses, it took a minute to get there, if that could say, for the same reason that like back in the day, I do bring back in the day because there's a lot of history to it. It wasn't so easily like to get those type of materials, like ya cuando uno podía like to create those materials, or like antes costaba mucho, you know, but ya cuando pudieron ganar ese material, that it's what's known for Veracruz, you know. It used to be pastel colors. The dresses used to be pastel colors. So like, for example, when you see my Veracruz dresses, you see that it's either white, or it's like the golden one, or it's the green one. And a lot of people tell me, they're like, oh, like I never knew there was like pastel colors to it. Or like there was different colors to it. I thought it was just the white one. But back in the day, when Amalia Hernandez, she, bueno, hacía sus investigaciones, because she also investigated like regions for the same reason when she was composing her group, fue a una fiesta en Veracruz, fue a una boda. And en esa boda, she saw the bride who was getting married. She was dressed in that attire, and she was dressed in white. Y le llamó mucho la atención. She was like, like I really like this. And basically, she brought like what she saw from the wedding, and she brought it up to her company. She's like, oh, actually, like I want y'all to dance in white, you know?
That's
so
awesome.
all the dancers started dressing in white, and then later on, different companies also liked that idea, you know? So that's why a lot of like cuando se baila Veracruz, por eso todo el mundo está en blanco, because it was adapted into that. Because, for example, even when it comes to my attire, this is a fusion of you could say, of traditional, academic, but also spectacular. Because lo que se conoce mucho en Jalisco es lo que es this attire. But, for example, in my skirt tiene una estrella, porque cuando hago mis vueltas de plato, hay una estrella.
Wow.
Pero esa estrella was actually adapted by a designer in Jalisco as well. Traditionally, no se usaba la estrella. O también, this is also more of like the spectacular, because antes se usaba lo que era Jalisco ranchero, or people used to say antiguo, but it's more traditional, or Jalisco ranchero, you know? And it's basically this dress, but with floral prints. Pero
Awesome.
sí, ha cambiado mucho lo que es the attire. It has changed a lot over the years, and it continues to change.
Yeah, I was watching a lot of videos about Ballet Folklórico, including the names, the regions, and this and that. There's debates about this, debates about that. The earrings, the peinados, all that is like, it's got this thing. Like,
Sí.
a peinado to a side, a particular side means taken. A peinado to the other side means you're single.
Sí.
And I was just tripping out how y'all got your own language of seeing this stuff.
See, it's because there's a lot of history and a lot of meaning to it. Because even when it comes to like the earrings or the hair, like traditionally in Jalisco se bailaba con tocado, o a veces ya lo que se acostumbra lo que es el chongo. So it's really open up to, like, obviously within the box of folklorico, you know, because that's, well, you don't want to be disrespectful of the culture, but it's really up to the choreographer or like the artistic director's choice.
Do you ever get any pushback? We're going to get into your story more,
Yeah, of course.
but since we're in the subject right now, I really like in the education. I'm in school right now. Native indigenous folks, there are more, you know, indigenous Mexicanos. Do you ever hear any conflict about the things that y'all do? Because they have the danza, which is different, not even the same thing to what you do, right? This is way different. This is like a mixture of indigenous and, you know, you would say Spaniards and different fusions, right? Do you ever have any conversations or anything like that about the conflicts of that?
Well, it's always tricky navigating through the pathway that I am right now, because one, like, I'm young, you know, so I'm still like enriching myself with what Ballet Folklórico is, because I do my courses and etc. But it's always tricky navigating through it. But as well, when it comes to my performances, I always try to touch in the history aspect, or like my choices of like dances or moves and etc. For the same reason that you always have critiques. So like, for example, if you focus more on traditional or academic folklorico, a lot of people who don't necessarily understand what Ballet Folklórico is, they're like, that's kind of boring, you know? There's not a lot of skirt work, or like, oh, me llama más la atención if you were to do this certain move, or me llama más la atención if you were to dance with this music. And that's where you're like, well, culturally, respectfully, like in Jalisco se baila con música mariachi, or con Sinaloa se baila con música de banda. You know? So like even when it comes to those categories, but like, for example, ya cuando I start incorporating more of like the spectacular aspect, that's where people are like, wait, like, that's not very traditional, you know? Like, isn't it supposed to be like this? Or like,
whoa, you can't please nobody.
But it's always, it's trying to stick into the box, you know? And as well being like educated, or like enriching yourself, or like accepting feedback for you, like for myself to be a better dancer, or like to give like my reasoning of like why I did this, or my choices, you know?
Yeah, I think visually the one that the spectacular one is more appealing, because it's more movement. You know, you got the estrella, you can see it. It's a whole lot more motions going on.
And it's tricky navigating for the same reason that I do touch into like lo que son polcas de Nuevo León, or lo que es San Luis, que es Huasteca. It's tricky because cuando a veces when I perform those regions, it's a lot of zapateado, and it's a lot of footwork, and it's like, uno que entiende folclórico, it's like, wow, like she conquered that step, you know, or like, o se salió de ritmo, you know, like uno de folclórico can catch that, you know. Pero uno, when it comes to like different audiences, or like, for example, when I perform with different audiences, they're like, oh, like what catches my attention is Jalisco, or the purple dress. They always say the purple dress, you know?
Dress.
But for the same reason that a lot of people don't understand like the footwork to it, or like the actual, like the behind the scenes. Because in San Luis, it's a lot of like footwork played, but like skirt work is just like this, you know. Y lo que llama mucho la atención con Huastecas or like San Luis or Monterrey or like lo que es Nuevo León, mucho trabajo de pareja. So for example, a veces my mom, she would tell me, she's like, ¿por qué no bailas Nuevo León? Like, o sea, baila Nuevo León, eres, I was like, she would tell me, like, eres de allí, well, my parents, you know, but technically speaking, pues soy de Nuevo León, you know?
Sí, ¿verdad?
And I'm like, well, lo que pasa is that a lot of, like, es llama la atención más cuando es pareja. And then she's like, pues hazlo tú de solista, you know? You're doing it as a solista now, like, might as well do it, you know? But, like, the times that I've attempted, it just depends your audience, honestly.
Okay.
So I always, like, obviously, I always try to appeal with what the audience wants, you know, because I'm a performer, you know?
Of course.
But that's why I try to, like, always change things up, because even though a lot of people know me for my purple dress de Jalisco, I always bring up, like, for example, si es el son de la negra, my son de la negra is never the same. There's always different choreography, so I'm always changing something up, you know, or different songs de Jalisco, you know.
Love it. Okay, so let's continue with the interview. You got introduced to Ballet Folklorico about 5 or 6 years old. Do you remember who brought it to your attention? Did your mom put you in a course? Was there a kind of, I don't know, maybe in school they offer something? How did that come about for you?
So when I got introduced to Ballet Folklórico, it was more of like my mom trying to find an avenue for me to do something, you know? For the same reason, like when you're growing up, it's like, let's get them into soccer, or let's get them into gymnastics, you know? Or etc., you know? And Folklorico was an avenue that she felt like she was able to get me into, because it wasn't, for example, when it comes to like ballet is like super expensive, or like even gymnastics, it's like, it's not as approachable to us, you know, and within our community, por lo mismo that it's expensive. And it's expensive for what it is, you know, it's its own art form. But when it came to Ballet Folklórico, it was more approachable when it comes to like financially, you know. I basically joined a team within Fort Worth. Fun fact, I joined Azteca, which was actually the first Ballet Folklórico group within the Fort Worth area. Awesome. So that was like, I believe it was either in 1975 or 76 when they first established within Fort Worth, but that was the first group that got established. But I got into Ballet Folklórico with them. Yeah, I would say I got into Ballet Folklórico with them. I wasn't able to necessarily continue when it came to them for the same reason that my mom was pregnant during that time. But later on, I joined a different group. You could say it was through my church. And the first region that we actually danced was Nuevo León, so that's what always caught my mom's attention. And later on, at the age of 14, I started dancing competitive folklorico, so that's where I would like travel to like San Antonio, Austin, Colorado to compete. And then at the age of 18, going into TCU, that's where I couldn't continue. There was a point where I still did Ballet Folklórico within the team, but that's when my academia was starting to like fall back, you know? And I ended up leaving the team, and I didn't do Folklórico for like a semester or two. However, I didn't feel like, I wasn't satisfied. I was like, wait, like this isn't fun, you know? Like even when it came to my career path, I was majoring in fashion merchandise for the same reason that I wanted to continue dancing folklorico or something tied into Ballet Folklórico, you know? But it was more of the business aspect. So then I went into theater, and I was like, oh, like Ballet Folklórico is traditional dances, you know, it's
storytelling.
It's indigenous dance and indigenous theater, you know? However, I had a conversation with a professor within the theater department for the same reason that they saw that I wasn't like really tying it in. And they're like, Claudia, like, why are you in theater? Like, why are you in theater, you know? And I was like, well, I'm in theater because I want to dance Ballet Folklórico and I want to teach and perform, you know? And they're like, Claudia, isn't Ballet Folklórico, I don't know, isn't it more of a recreational thing? And I was like, recreational? Like, what do you mean, you know? I ended up leaving TCU a semester debating whether or not to continue my studies in general. But when I left TCU, that's when cuando me lancé de solista. So I estaba like performing within like the DFW area, within like the Dallas area, within TCU as well, because even though I took the year off, I was still a student. And that's what really pushed me to lanzarme como solista. So that's how I kind of became a soloist, and then going back into TCU, performing as well within TCU.
What are the benefits and the pros and the cons for you being a solista compared to being in a group?
Well, obviously, obviously people are like, we need interactions, we need bonds, At the beginning it was at the beginning it was difficult at first, for the same reason that I miss being in a group. Like, I crave going back to the group. I was like, oh, like, I can do it, like, I could manage academia with it. And like,
was it sad for you the day that you had to tell them that you have to stop? And because of school, it wasn't because you wanted to?
Yes, and it's tricky because a lot of dancers who have danced Folklorico for many years, they stop dancing Folklorico, or they stop doing what they're passionate about for the same reason that they prioritize academics,
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard at first, but I'm like, I know there's another way to this, Y cuando me lancé de solista, there was a lot of critiques, because they're like, in Folklorico, it's supposed to be dances of the people. Like, what are you doing, But like, it has opened up a lot of opportunities, not only for myself, but a lot of dancers who are also now pursuing this pathway that I am pursuing, you could say. There's a lot of pros to it, for the same reason that, one, like, I'm very approachable. Because cuando estás en grupo, you're always depending on someone.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, like, you have a performance at X place. You always have that trouble of, like, si llegan en tiempo, si no te vayan a faltar, o si no te regresan los vestuarios, But como solista, I've been very adaptable to certain situations. For instance, when I was like starting as a soloist, I got invited to perform at Sundance Square for Day of the Dead.
Awesome.
And I performed, look at my time period. And I remember going to my parents, I was like, oh, happy, and she was like, oh, I just performed it with, like, in front of many people,
Was that your biggest performance at that time?
I would say when I came to Sundance Square, it was one of my first performances, for the same reason that they're like, oh, she's a TCU student. Like, what is a TCU student dancing Ballet Folklórico, Because that's like polar opposite,
They don't go.
And I remember going with my family, and I get a phone call from Sundance Square, and I was like, oh, like, I wonder what this is. I just saw them, And I answered the phone call. And they're like, hey, Tiffany, are you still here by any chance? And I'm like, yes. What's going on, They're like, well, the team that was supposed to perform, they didn't show up. And they're not going to show up. They're going to, like, we don't know how late they're going to be, but they're not here. Is it possible if you could perform for us?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was that time period. And I was like, how much time are we talking about, And they're like, roughly 30 minutes. And I'm like, 30 minutes, like, ¿cómo es eso, Because now I've done it before, but, like, en ese tiempo, like, I would just perform, like, 2 songs and call it a day, por lo mismo. And I was like, yeah, I think I got it, And I saw, like, they shared, like, what their track of music was, which was, like, Sones de Jalisco. I think there was some of Sinaloa. They're like, can you perform Sinaloa for us? And I'm like, respectfully, like, no, por lo mismo that I'm going to dance Jalisco and I have the attire of Jalisco, It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be culturally appropriate to dance Jalisco, or like Sinaloa with vestuario de Jalisco, And they're like, yeah, okay, that's fine, And I ended up performing roughly those 30 minutes, And, like, coming off the stage, I was like, what did I just do, Like yo pensé que el grupo se bailaba así de media hora. And, like, that really enriched me, because I'm like, wait, like, if I could do 30 minutos, entonces yo puedo say, like, entonces I could do performances from 30 minutes to an hour. And that's what I do now. Like, for example, sometimes as a soloist, they're like, can you just perform for 5 minutes or just 2 minutes? I'm like, yeah, of course. Or, like, even 50 seconds, up to a minute and 20 seconds. I'm like, si la canción es de 3 minutos y 50, como, like, 1 minute. But that's where a lot of my, como solista, I'm able to, like, nitpick it. I'm able to, like, edit the music to compose those 1 minute and 20 minutes, or those 30 minutes, because sometimes when I perform la media hora up to an hour, I do, like, one region, which is composed of, like, 2 to 3 songs, it makes up to like 10 minutes,
Yeah.
So I perform my 10 minutes and I'm like, okay, wardrobe change, Either I have a mariachi acompañándome, and they cover those 5 minutes that I have my wardrobe change, or just music playing in the background. I do my 5-minute wardrobe change and I come back and I perform another region, and then do my 3 other songs and then come back and then perform my other region.
Awesome. Wow. So when you went solo, where do people start finding you? Did they kind of already knew? Did you make an announcement? Or you had a strong presence in social media and that's how people found you?
You could say I try to be very like outgoing when it came to social media. Like if I had a performance, I would always share it or tag like where I was performing, like, oh, I'm performing at Sundance Square, make sure to come, Or like, for example, I'm performing at TCU, make sure to come at TCU, But that's what caught a lot of people's attention. It's like, wait, like Folklorico at TCU, like how is that even a thing, And that's what really caught people's attention, for the same reason that it's like, ¿Cómo vas a mirar Folklorico at TCU? And it was tricky at first, for the same reason that I would reach out to like several organizations within TCU saying like, hey, I'm a Ballet Folklórico dancer. I know Hispanic Heritage Month is coming. If you need a performer, like let me know, And it was tricky navigating through that same reason, like, for example, that I was in the theater department. They didn't take Folklorico seriously,
Yeah.
So it was tricky navigating it through that pathway. But, for example, for myself, like, outreaching, saying, like, hey, like, if you need a dancer, like, let me know. And they would find opportunities, such as, like, tailgates, And in those tailgates, there will be alumni, or there'll be folks within the community. And they're like, oh, like that's pretty cool, And they would approach me and they're like, so are you a performer from like a company, or where are you from, And I'm like, no, I'm actually a student within TCU. And they're like, oh, interesting, Are you from like Mexico? Or are you from like San Antonio? Or like, where are you from? And I'm like, no, I'm actually born and raised here in Fort Worth.
First generation.
Like, they're like, interesting. So that's what has really tied a lot of people within my story as well, that I'm like born and raised in Fort Worth, Mexican American, first gen at TCU, And they're like, oh, she's on a full ride, or her parents are rich, And I'm like, I'm not on a full ride, and my parents are not rich. They're broke as me,
What do you think I'm doing dancing? Creating opportunities for myself. Okay, was there any pushback from the faculty at all, knowing that you were doing it? Or, because after a while, things started developing for you, right?
Yes.
Within TCU, including different opportunities, right? So before we get into that, was there any pushback at all? Anybody like turn you in? I was like, this girl's running around dancing Folklorico and TCU. What's going on?
Well, you could see a lot of people didn't necessarily believe. They didn't believe in me, and as well, they didn't believe in the culture.
Gotcha.
For the same reason that they didn't take it seriously. Because sometimes, back when I was in the team and when I was in within the theater department, I told my professor, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna miss a day. Like, is it okay? And they're like, where are you going? And I'm like, oh, it's because I'm going to a competition in Colorado. And they're like, well, why are you in school then if you're not doing what's within your career path, And that also brought a lot of question within myself, where I was like, wait, like, why am I in school if I'm not doing necessarily what I'm passionate about, And even when I would talk to my advisors, because at first I was in fashion merchandise, and then I was in theater. Originally, I was in theater design, because I do a lot of arts and crafts, por lo mismo artesanía,
Sí.
And I ended up leaving the program because you weren't able to like minor in anything else, and it was very heavy course based, And that didn't give me the opportunity to dance folklorico. So I went into the normal BA of theater, but people are like, "Why are you in theater? Like you're not doing anything. Like you don't have a career,
Right.
And I'm like, I do. Like I want to be a performer. I want to be an educator. I want to teach folklorico. Like that's actually a profession, And I remember I was like trying to search up schools if there was like any Ballet Folklórico degrees. There wasn't,
Right.
except in Mexico, And people, like even my advisor, like even family, to the point that I got my parents like frustrated, where they're like, ¿Sabes qué, Tiffany? No sabes lo que estás haciendo. You don't know what you're doing. We're not gonna help you pay for school anymore.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And they're like, pues sabe cómo te la resuelves, Either you go to a community college or some elsewhere, or te sales, or like you get out of school like instantly, And I'm like, how do I do this? Like, how do I navigate through that? However, like I mentioned, even when it came to my advisors, they're like, just pursue like a random degree, like just do communication. It's like the easiest way out. And I'm like, well, firstly, there's not an easy major within TCU, first of all. And then secondly, that doesn't necessarily settle with me. Like, I know there's a profession to it, And then that's where it took me a while to find the pathway that I'm in. However, that's when I later found out that TCU, they opened up, under the College of Education, they opened up a new career path, which was interdisciplinary inquiry. And I'm like, that catches my attention. They opened up that program within the fall of 2023. And I remember, like, during that time period, they're going into winter break, like calling and saying, like, hey, like, I'm interested in this program because I thought you could do an emphasis. And I was like, why not an emphasis in Ballet Folklórico, Because, like, that's a degree in Mexico. Like, I would see, like, the curriculum, because a lot of people were thought I was wasting my time within TCU, because sometimes I would take classes within the art department, within the theater department, within the music department. They're like, it doesn't necessarily fall in your core, And I'm like,
so you had a lot of talks about that because you were going from this to that, trying to find your path.
Exactly. And I'm like, and I was, in a way, what was inspiring me was the career plan, because like Las Universidades in Mexico, they have their Ballet Folklórico degree, and they take classes within art history, within the music department, within theater, within education, And I was like inspiring with that, But when it came to my exact career path, I remember talking to the advisors, doing like a whole application, and they're like, why this pathway? And I was like, well, Ballet Folklórico is very interdisciplinary. There's the history aspect, there's the dancing aspect, there's the design tech, there's the musicality, there's the actual designing of the vestuarios, the makeup to it. There's a lot to it, the education piece as well. Because it's not only like you learning about the history, but it's as well teaching, I did my application during the winter break of 23, and I got accepted on the first day, January of the spring semester of 2024.
Okay. So the application led to actually them having Folklorico, like as something that people could teach?
Well, because when it comes to interdisciplinary,
gotcha.
A lot of students who go into interdisciplinary,
you got to break it down. So I've never been to college because I have never been. Well, I have been to community college, so you have to kind of sort of like walk me through that path, because I get what you're saying, but I'm like very interested in how they all got tied together to what it is now. Okay.
So when it comes to an interdisciplinary degree, because there's other universities that offer interdisciplinary degree, it's for students who either have like different avenues. So for example, they've taken classes within business, but they've also taken classes within like sports related, like sports medicine, like an athlete, like an athlete's like, oh, I want to be like in like football and everything, or like continue my athletics. However, I do want a business degree, but like because of the course demands, they can't do it all. But like as an interdisciplinary student, you could take certain classes within the business department, or within like sports medicine, or like what's it called, kinesiology, like within that pathway. So they pretty much built their own curriculum. However, when it came to a Ballet Folklórico degree, they're like, how would that work, And then that's where I started like even enriching that own faculty, saying like, there's a lot to it. There's the music aspect. There's the theater aspect. Like, there's a whole profession about it, And then, like, for example, I told them, like, there's the universities in Mexico, and there's also the University of the Rio Grande Valley, which is the only university, well, not anymore, but the only university with an actual Ballet Folklórico degree. So,
So you were the catalyst, the reason why here in TCU now. Is it the only one in Texas, or there's different ones?
So when it comes to the Ballet Folklórico degree, there's only one school within the whole well, not anymore, there's TCU now. But there was one school at the time who actually offered a Ballet Folklórico degree, which is the University of the Rio Grande Valley, which is in Edinburgh, Texas, which is South Texas. So like close to Corpus Christi, you could say. However, even when that came to about, like even when I was in TCU, I was like, going into TCU, I was like, wait, like, why wasn't I aware about this university, you know? Yeah, I have the Ballet Folklórico degree. Why did I not know about this? They ended up creating that degree when I first started in TCU.
Wow.
So, like, I would have never knew. However, like, there's so, like, things happen for a reason, you know? Because if that degree existed beforehand, I would have never landed at TCU, you know? But when it comes to my career path, basically with my degree, I'm building my own curriculum. So, like, each semester that I have within TCU, I decide what classes I want. I'm like, well, obviously, meet your core classes, you know? Or your basics, you know? But I was like, what would fall into my interdisciplinary degree of Ballet Folklórico? So, for example, within TCU, I've taken classes within, like, Mexican American folklore, which is under the anthropology, or ADRAN, you could say. I've taken classes within the Spanish department. I've taken classes within the art department. I've taken, you could say, an introduction to art history and to Aztec art and to Mexican American art. I've taken classes within the music department, like an intro to music. Taken classes within education as well, like, for the reason. So basically, it's like a puzzle. I'm building my own degree. And with that saying, if there's students, because there's been like kids who have approached me saying, like, I want to do what you're doing, you know. Now students who are coming into TCU who want to pursue a Ballet Folklórico degree can.
Wow.
But they basically pursued the classes that I've taken.
And
So,
that's kind of the path for them to go forward.
basically.
Wow. So whenever you're getting approved for that, and all of a sudden now they allow you to do a folklorico degree, how does that feel for you? First of all, I know at 5 and 6 years old, you get introduced to something. Sometimes you might like it, sometimes you might not. But where does the love of it come from? Because you have a love for it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing the things that you do. You wouldn't left school because the particular teacher didn't have the vision that you had as far as what you wanted to do with this, and you saw the importance of it because you've been dancing for so many years and the depth history of it, not just dance just because of dancing, right? Where does the love of it come from? When did that happen for you?
I would say I'm very passionate with what I do, because I tell people, like, people always focus on like bringing in income, you know, because even when it comes to Ballet Folklórico or like the performing arts, it's very undervalued and as well very underrepresented for the same reason that it's a tricky avenue. Because even when you go into Mexico, back in the day, if someone was pursuing something regarding the arts or music, well, except mariachis, you could say that was more of passion, you know. But when it came to someone pursuing like the performing arts, it was like, oh, your parents have money. Because it's expensive to pursue the arts, to be educated, you know, within that realm. So a lot of people will focus on, like, let's focus on medicine, or let's do architect, you know, or like carpinteria, you know, for the same reason of the focus to bring money, you know.
Yeah.
And that's like the same mindset we still have, you know. It's like, why would you do performing arts if it's not going to be stable, you know? Or even seeing my dad's very passionate with what he does. Él le encanta doing cabinets because he makes custom cabinets, you know. But it's very hard labor, you know.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people are within their industry, but they're not happy, because there's always that question: do you rather be poor and happy, or do you rather be rich and miserable, you know? Well, and then obviously, because people say money buys happiness, or there's that saying, you know. And I'm like,
to an extent.
Exactly. And I'm like, money's not the answer to everything, you know? But, like, I understand, like, the reason behind it, you know? But I always wanted to be passionate with something I did, you know? Like, I want to be happy with what I do. Because even then, when I was in TCU and I was taking different classes that I wasn't passionate about, like, I was miserable, you know? Like, I didn't want to go to school. Like, I would, like, maybe skip class, maybe, you know? Maybe. Don't do this at
Take
home,
a
you know?
break.
You know?
Don't skip class,
Don't
kids.
skip class, please.
This is not advice.
Please. But,
Go to school.
like, I wanted to be passionate with what I did, you know? And Folklorico, I really found the passion. It was like a scapegoat for me. Like, I was able to escape from, like, reality, like, escape from, like, anything that was happening within my life, you know? Because, like,
so when you're dancing, you're in the middle of your performance, this is how it feels for you?
Yeah. Well, honestly, because a lot of people tell me they're like, are you not afraid of dancing in front of people or like being behind the camera, you know, or like, does that not scare you? And I'm like, no, because it's kind of like in the scenes of the movie. When I'm dancing, it's just me. Wow. It's just me being there in the moment. So it speaks so much. Like, even like, I can't even say it with words, honestly, but like just dancing folklorico, it means so much to me, and being able to like enrich the community with the history.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And what has really gotten me to this point is that I'm very goal oriented and very driven. Obviously there's feedback, obviously people like, you know, like critiques, you know, or a lot of people don't believe in me, but I feel like that's what's really has driven me as well, because like within TCU or within my career path, a lot of people have not believed in me or said, you can't do it as a soloist, you'll never be successful, you know. But I used that negative feedback and turned it into a positive, or like motivator, saying like, let me prove them wrong, you know.
Yeah, I remember in Channel 5 you were doing an interview, and I think you were kind of sort of going into your mind, it's like, I can't believe that I'm doing this. Not that I didn't believe in myself, but that I get to do this. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was very interesting to hear you say that, because you're a pioneer in something that's never been. Teachers were not even on board, some you could say, with what you was doing, but then you get the opportunity and now you're pioneering. How does that feel for you to know that that's what you're doing now?
Gosh, sometimes, obviously I take this very seriously, but it's sometimes unbelievable, because like it's something that I continue to do to this day, you know. And sometimes when I share my story, like people are amazed. They're like, wow, like you did that, or like, wow.
I am amazed.
You know, like a lot of people are surprised, and I'm like, oh, is it really that big of a deal, you know? For the same reason that I've been doing it for like so long, you know. Even when it comes to my parents, obviously my parents are proud of me, but because I've done it for a long time, they're like, okay, Tiffany, and you know, like, good job. You know?
wait a minute. One time they were didn't even going to give you money for school because you just couldn't even find a way until you found a way, right?
Mm-hmm. For the same reason that they have the mindset of like, this isn't gonna get you anywhere, you know. They had that mindset, but like once they saw like, hey, like TCU's taking me seriously, you know, they're like, okay, this is interesting, you know.
Yeah. Or
like, hey mom, I'm being interviewed by NBC5, or I'm on the Fort Worth magazine, or I'm on X, Y, and Z. They're like, this is interesting. And that's where they also started taking it seriously. And like a lot of people have really been inspired with my story, and it really inspires me, because I'm like, wow, like I'm actually opening like pathways, you know. Because even within TCU, like I created and founded TCU's for Sever Ballet Folklórico group, you know. Like, when will you ever see a group within TCU, you know?
How did that happen? First of all, you're already doing a lot of work. First of all, pioneering the first, you can graduate, have a degree in Folklorico, and now leading to having a whole entire group. How does that go?
Well, it was tricky. Obviously, like when it came to like starting, because it's under a student org, so it's a student organization, so it's run and led by students, you know.
Gotcha.
When it first came to be, I did have like my process of like creating an application, saying like, why would this be beneficial within the TCU community, you know. I did a whole training last year from January to March. And I remember like being in the room with other students as well, like who wanted to start like other student organizations, such as like tap dancing, you know, which is amazing, you know. But everybody was within groups. Like there was either 3 or 4 students who were like the founders, you know. And there I am in the corner, like me, myself, and I, you know. And I was like, wait, like, is this going to be possible, you know? Because even when it came to like the advisors who help like student orgs, they're like, how is this going to be sustainable? Like, is there interest within, like, the TCU community of, like, students interested in dancing folklorico? And I'm like, yes. Like, I know I'm not the only one. There might be students who want to dance ballet folklorico, or who might be inspired, because they've approached me where they're like, wow, I'm so inspired. Like, how can we learn? Like, you should start a student org, you know? Like, how can we get it? So,
you know, the demand is there, but there's not a group for them to go to, even though there's a demand.
And as well, the fear, you know, because there's obviously fear of like doing something new or doing change, because like change is like, a lot of people are afraid of change, even myself, you know. Like, if we're so stuck in a box.
What makes you push forward when you're scared?
No, I would say like it's kind of the feeling in the chest, you know. If I feel like something's not right, or I feel like there should be a change, I'm very, like I mentioned, I'm very goal driven, very motivated, and very goal orientated. When I say goal orientated, I like, if I want something to be done, I do my best in my abilities to make it done. It's kind of the mindset, like, if you believe you can, you know, like, everything is possible if you set your mind to it.
So there's really not fear, because you already got your mind that it's going to happen.
Basically.
And that's pretty much it.
Because even when it came to coming into TCU, or even in elementary, like, TCU was like always, like, it was like my school that always caught my attention, because it's in Fort Worth, you know, go Frogs, you know, go Frogs, you know. But even when it came to that, I had a lot of feedback where people were like, you'll never to make it to TCU. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. Your money don't have the, like, your parents don't have the money for it, you know? But that, like I mentioned, like, that feedback was like, let me prove them wrong, you know? And even coming into TCU, not necessarily knowing what career or degree I wanted to go into, I set myself 3 goals. My first goal, I call it my Delulu goal. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it, you know? Create my own major. My first goal, create my own major in Ballet Folklórico.
Check.
My second goal, start a Ballet Folklórico group at TCU.
Check.
My third goal, teach Ballet Folklórico outside of the community.
Check yet? Check that too, baby. Wow.
So, like, I tend to do, like, little checklists. I'm like, okay, I completed this now. Like, what's next, you know? And that's where I set myself new goals, or, like, new ambitious. But, like, not everyone is, like, not everyone is like that, you know? There's fear, there's anxiety, you know? Like, what if I get judged, you know? So I was like, I have to be that one person who creates the doors, you know? Who opens the doors. So I basically did my whole training and got the confirmations over the summer and started launching, saying, like, hey, it's official. There's a Ballet Folklórico group now. And then basically we did, like, auditions. It's a student org, so it's supposed to be open to all students. However, they got into that pathway as, like, a spirit team, you know? So it's like, oh, it's only limited to X, Y, and Z dancers, you know? And I'm like, no, it's supposed to be open to all. So that's something I'm still trying to navigate through, if that makes sense. But as well, it is a student-led student org. So it's tricky navigating through that pathway as well, because, like I mentioned, it's student-led. Different compared to, like, a Ballet Folklórico company.
Got you.
Where a Ballet Folklórico company, the director is in charge of doing everything, such as costumes, music, choreography, attendance. And that's how I took it. Like, when we launched as our first semester, I did it all, you know? And it was a lot of responsibility, because even when it came to, like, the costumes, TCU was able to fund us with costumes.
Awesome.
However, I was in charge of, like, this communication, getting in contact with the director of who was going to make our dresses, getting those dresses for the football game, getting the dancers ready. And it was tricky because I had, like, a lot of dancers. Some of them had experience.
Yeah.
Some of them didn't have experience at all. So being able, and that's what I really like about my teaching, I'm able to get everyone in the same level playing field, to the point that you wouldn't notice that it was from all different backgrounds or levels, you know?
That's great. You're a great teacher.
Thank you.
Yeah. When it's student-led, do you still create a organization structure, as far as still you have to have the head, whether you want it or not, and then everybody else? Or everybody has the same equal say-so? Because that can get a little tricky when it comes to something that is pretty much volunteer, I guess. The students want to do it to keep it going for a longer term.
You could say it's tricky. It's very tricky for the same reason that I'm so used to being in, like, for example, like, I've worked under Amalia Hernandez before.
Yeah,
like,
you have to have a structure. You have to have some type of structure.
There's a structure.
run.
However, when it comes to student-led and a Ballet Folklórico company, they're different structures.
Got you.
When it's more of a student-led, it's like for the people, by the people, you know, kind of like politics, you know?
Democracy, the way it's supposed to
You
run.
know, like that type of way, where we could do the right thing, or like the structure correct thing, but it might not be the right thing, you know? And that's something that I've been navigating with the student organization, the TC Ballet Folklórico group, where everybody can have, like, a better, like, stronger opinion. And that's where I'm like, wait, like, culturally it's not like that, or like it's not supposed to be like that, you know, or like in Jalisco se baila así or se baila con esta música, you know. But at the same time, that's where I'm also educating the students, where I'm like, hey, like traditionally it's not supposed to be like this, or traditionally you're not supposed to have your costumes after the performance to like keep like safe keep, you know.
Yeah.
But it's tricky because it's more of like their voices are heard more compared to that one person, you know.
Gotcha.
So that's something that I've been trying to navigate through. But at the same time, like I'm like, I'll do what I like the best of my abilities, you know.
Of course.
But like if they don't want to listen, I'm not gonna waste my time either. Because the day it became the TCU Ballet Folklórico group, it's not like, oh, because a lot of people have approached me. They're like, Tiffany, can your group come and dance for us? I'm like,
they're not my group.
it's not my group, you know. It's under the TCU umbrella.
We let the charge she created, but you know that was just, that's my part. That was my part.
So that's why I say like I opened up like the opportunity, because now there's dancers who never danced folklorico or who are now dancing ballet folklorico at TCU. You know, it gives them the opportunity to now dance within the group. You know, but I opened that pathway and I opened that door.
When your family wasn't willing to fund you because you didn't know which way to go, but then you found a way, as you were saying earlier, a lot of the time, the money part. So when you started getting booked solo and you saw some money coming in, did that kind of change your mind a little bit? Like, well, she's making a little money. She's making some money, or she's making good money.
You could say, because a lot of it's tricky navigating as a soloist, and when I was first launching myself, because a lot of people would take advantage, or like, for example, they're like, oh, like, can you come and perform for us?
Put one on blast without no names. What was one situation that happened to you? So we can smack them in the hand real quick.
Well, it's just not necessarily obviously several situations, but it's being not, you could say gosh, it's tricky, but you could say when people ask for me to perform and they don't like understand for what it is, you know, because when it comes to the performing arts, it's very not, I wouldn't say underrepresented. Well, yes, you could say underrepresented, but as well not as appreciated, because a lot of people don't know what it takes. So for example, people are like, but you just performed for 5 minutes, or you just performed for 10 minutes. That was that. Like, why is it that expensive, you know? Or even when it comes to mariachi groups, because I perform and collaborated with mariachi groups. And I, like, when I do those collaborations, like, the rate is up. And they're like, wait, like, why is it that up if it's just 30 minutes, you know?
You play. You get the accord. You dance. You know what I mean?
There's a lot to it. Because, for example, it's not just the dancing. It's the makeup. Like, buying your own makeup,
this outfit,
you know?
I'm pretty sure
Exactly. Buying the outfit. Buying
all the mariachi instruments. All the years you're done
the years of training. The transportation.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot to it. Because it's not just my time performing. It's also my time beforehand and then afterwards. Because sometimes they're like, wait, can you stay a little bit longer, you know? And like, that's what makes me different as well. I'm always willing to, like, I'm always open to anything, you know? Like, I'm not like, oh, can you do this? I'm like, no, sorry. Like, it's in my contract. Like, I'm not closed-minded, if that makes sense. Like, my passion is, my mission is to share the art and beauty of Folklorico.
Why is it important to you?
Why is it important to me? Because a lot of people aren't educated with what Ballet Folklórico is. A lot of people don't have the opportunity to see Ballet Folklórico either when it comes to, like, the community, you know? It's like maybe an X, Y, and Z event, or, oh, maybe I have to pay to see this recital, you know? But I want to open that avenue and open up those branches, like, for example, like me teaching at community centers, or me going out for, like, a career day. Because there's times where because when I first started, and now it's being appreciated, you know, but when I first started, it was a lot of, like, free events, a lot of me, like, performing, like just giving my time, you know, but there's always critiques saying, like, oh, you're performing for the money, and I'm like, I'm not getting anything out of this, you know. It's just for the same reason that my passion is more sharing for the community. And it has sparked a lot of attention, even within the TC community, because, for example, I'm a very grounded person. I love to speak with everyone. I love to make friends, you know. When I'm within the TC community, like, there's a lot of hardworking staff, you know. There's the custodians, there's the TCU dining, and they're doing their jobs, you know. But, like, where's the interaction with students and workers, you know? And I remember, like, when I was first going with TC dining, I would, like, always talk to them, like, oh, how's your day? And they're like, good, sweetie, good, you know, at you know? And I would, like, try to, like, have more conversations. They're like, oh, like, how's your day? What do you do, you know? And then that's where I would have my opportunity to, like, share what I do. I'm like, oh, I dance Ballet Folklórico. Or, like, hey, I'm going to dance at this event within TC. You should come, you know? And they're like, oh, sorry, we wish, but, like, we're working during this time. I'm like, interesting. If you can't come to my show, why not take the show to you, you know? So then that's where I would start, like, for example, I would perform sometimes for TC dining, which is, like, the people from within the cafeteria or the buffet. I will be like, you know what? I'm coming on this day and this time to perform.
During lunchtime or during the time they're serving?
During
Really?
the lunch or
Just
dinner.
start dancing.
Yeah, and I'm
That's
like,
so cool.
I'm like, would y'all be open to it? Like, do you want me to come to perform for y'all? And they're like, yeah, of course. So, like, for example, earlier this year, I had a performance with TCU Athletics for their basketball game. And I remember I was thinking to myself, I was like, I remember they said they wanted to see me perform, but they couldn't watch me perform. Should I just go to my dorm, call it a night, or should I just go and show up with my dress, you know? And I'm like, yeah, like, let's do it, you know? And I show up with my dress, and they're like, mija, like, you look so beautiful. You look so pretty.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I wish you could dance for us. And I was like, I'm already here. Might as well, you know? And I remember when I first started, we would grab, like, their cell phones, play music out of there. But, like, even then, like, when I would grab my food sometimes later, like, throughout the semester, they're like, mija, when will you dance again for us? And I'm like, you know what? I'm coming next week. And that's what I would do. Like, now, like, for example, this coming week, I have a performance with them, like, just for the fun of it, for the same reason that's my mission. It's, like, to share the beauty of Folklorico to communities that may never seen Folklorico, especially for the TCU community. Like, a lot of folks are not well known what Folklorico is.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important for the community to know what Ballet Folklórico is and what it means for the culture?
It's not only just the culture within, like, my, like, Mexican American, like, culture, or, like, within, like, the history of Folklorico or within Mexico. It not only opens the opportunity for within my culture, but it also opens the opportunity for other, like other cultures within dance. Because, like, folklore, it's really dances of the people, but there's Mexican folklore. There's also, there's other indigenous dances. Like, for example, there's capoeira, which is a Brazilian Afro martial arts dance. There's also, like, tango. There's also different genres of dances.
También danza azteca de México en diferentes
danzas aztecas, danzas mayas, like, different dances within different avenues. There's, like, even, like, Hawaiian dance. Like, it has a lot of history to it. But a lot of people are, like, not that it's stereotypical, but, like, there's, like, they're not very aware of what it is, you know? And this is open, like, Ballet Folklórico is opening avenues for other dance genres. So that's why I advocate a lot of, like, not just only my dancing, but as well there's more to it, you know, there's more dances to it. And I always, like, for example, I receive a lot of questions of, like, oh, or, like, comments that they're like, oh, you look like a princess, or you look like, what's it called? There's this one movie that, like, someone from Encanto. When Encanto's, like, not within Mexican American culture, you know?
Colombia, creo.
I think so. And that's where, like, even I've danced bailes de Colombia, which it has its own different music repertoire, you know? Yeah. But, like, at the same time, I get a lot of, like, questions like, what is Ballet Folklórico? What is this, you know? And that's where it kind of catches my alert, too. I'm like, hey, it's not just Ballet Folklórico. There's also other dances, you know? And that's what I really like about TCU, that they're also opening up opportunities for other dance genres and other dance forms. And that's what even when it comes to the history aspect, because, for example, I've taken intro to Aztec art. I'm taking intro to Mexican American art as well. Wow. I've in the past I've taken capoeira, which is a Afro-Brazilian dance. I'm currently in baile de, it's not tango, flamenco. Like, there's even a lot when it comes. See, but, like, even when it comes to flamenco, there's a lot of history to it as well, because there's a lot of Afro roots too. And you're like, how is that? But if you think about it, there was a lot of slavery. Yeah. And slavery did go into Spain as well.
Slavery has a lot to do with a lot of the genres of music. Cumbia, salsa, bachata, all those had influences within Afro and Afro history, because the natives and the Afro slaves at that time had a lot of intertwining.
Exactly. Even when it comes to Ballet Folklórico, even where it comes to, like, if you look at the continent of, like, Mexico, or, like, just the figure of Mexico, even when it comes to the music component, it's like a melting pot. Because if you look at northern Mexico, you have a lot of roots from European roots, such as like música polka, like a lot of German stuff, you know?
Oh, yeah. When you say earlier the polka, there's like a particular region in Mexico that love polka, and that's all they want to dance. But it's like, why? How? This is from like Europe somewhere, but for whatever reason, that region loves polka.
Well, when it came to like migration, a lot of Europeans, a lot of Spaniards came into like the northern side of Mexico. When you look up more of like southern Mexico, such as like Yucatan, Veracruz, you have a lot of roots from Afro-Cuban, for the same reason that there was the importation of slaves.
Yeah.
And like even when it comes to la música jarocha, música fandango, you hear the Afro roots as well. Because one time I performed at TCU, someone came up to me and they're like, where's that from? And I'm like, what's from Veracruz? And they're like, that really sounds like Afro music. And I'm like, well, it's because there was importation of slaves, and that's where they came into, you know?
The instruments, some of the instruments they had combined with the natives and created this different sounds. It was pretty neat that you can still hear it.
Exactly.
Even now.
And when you look into more central Mexico, that's where you get a lot of the what's known of like indigenous dances, like bailes aztecas, like dances Mayans, you know, and as well Huastecas, which was very indigenous as well.
Yeah. Okay, we're running short on time.
No, you're
oh my goodness, but I've learned so much, and it's so amazing, incredible to talk to you. Again, I've seen the pictures. By the way, you have an amazing photographer. You always have beautiful pictures on your Instagram. We're gonna put her Instagram on the description, because there's so many pictures that you take with beautiful outfits. You come out amazing. I was showing Bree like, look at this picture, that looks so cool. It looked like, and she's like, it looked like when you were, if somebody was to talk about like a magazine of talking about this, that would be her picture. And well, actually, she's been some of the campaigns of different things they're done in TCU, because her pictures are just truly amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're running short on time. A few more questions, and I'm gonna let you go. You actually are still a student and pursuing a degree, right? You're majoring here in the near future. What are you majoring in?
I'm pursuing, it's under the Department of Education, College of Education, but I'm pursuing my degree in Interdisciplinary Inquiry with the emphasis of Ballet Folklórico with a minor of Arts Leadership and Entrepreneurship. So pretty much making a business out the performing arts.
Awesome. Graduating in what year?
December of 2025, so this year.
Okay, that's awesome. Graduating. Want to see, are you going to incorporate that when you walk?
That's what I'm thinking. A lot of people are like, it's going to be so iconic if you walk the stage with your purple dress. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to do it.
Was the inspiration for the purple for TCU?
Yes, so even when it comes to my dresses, or even when it came to the attire of the TCU Ballet Folklórico group, I designed those dresses. Obviously, getting components of like what I want, you know, like obviously the purple, TCU rainbow, like promoting diversity, inclusion, you know, tricky words to use now these days, you know, but I'm gonna use them anyways, you know. When it came to like the designing, when it comes to my design choices, obviously I work closely with the designer who fabricates the dresses. Fun fact, all my dresses are custom made, you know.
Yeah.
And like even then, like I'm still learning like the textile, like creating my own dresses. For example, within TCU, I'm actually taking a costume design class, so I'm learning like the behind the scenes, you know. So to get to this point of making the dresses. But the one who actually made my dresses was my director from the company I belong to, which was Mexico Lindo, which is Nestor Lopez. He's the one that makes my dresses, which is awesome, you know? Awesome. Because not a lot of people know how to make dresses either. They will either order them from Mexico or buy them very cheaply, which are made very cheaply, you know? But back to your question, which was, remind me again.
Are you going to be walking with that dress in here?
Yes, I'm planning to do so, but it's very... Like I mentioned, like all my dresses and even the TC Ballet Folklórico dress, all the dresses I have, they're designed traditionally, academically, and also they're spectacular because traditionally you wouldn't see a purple dress, you know? So it's a lot of fusion to it, but yes.
You do now. I mean, there is evolution, the things that happen. Like you said earlier, like based on the history, Veracruz used to be one way, the hands at a certain level, and then things happen, and it became an evolution, right? And then we're in the U.S., so how you incorporate things that you're tied where you're at, TCU forward, the colors, and to what you do, and still educate people on Ballet Folklorico and still represent, you know? Okay, when you were, I know you have done some amazing performance. I know the Sundance Square was amazing for you. You danced with Mariachi Mexico.
Mariachi Sol de Mexico. Mariachi Herencia Mexicana, I believe. They're from California. I performed for Natalia Jimenez as well. I performed in several rodeos as well. Yeah, a lot of, I performed for TC Athletics, TC Baseball. Like now, like even when when I was launching myself as a soloist, TCO also started like advocating for like Mexican pride, Mexican American pride. And that's when they started their themes as well within athletics, such as TCU's Noche de Ranas, which was the football theme, the Hispanic Heritage theme, which was the first one last year. And that's where awesome. The group performed for the first time. There's also been Ranas Cornudas, which is the baseball theme. There's been Hispanic Heritage Night, which is within the volleyball, within basketball. So even there, like performing for TCU Athletics has been huge because it's like, wait, like when would you see that, you know? Yeah. And as well, like perform for like Texas Rangers. So it's been super fun.
For all those performances that you're done, maybe some of them were not so noticeable, not a lot of eyes, but to you, for whatever reason, it hit you harder in your heart than any of them. It was more emotional for you. Any of them that you can think of right now?
Yes. There was this one time I was like super tired. Like I think I was coming back from a rehearsal. I was like super tired, like a 3-hour rehearsal. Like it was a lot, you know. Super tired. Just wanted to call it a day. My parents tell me, "Hey Tiffany, someone's birthday is today, and we forgot to mention it to you. However, they'll like for you to perform." And I'm like, "What? Like, why didn't you tell me beforehand? Like, I'm tired, you know. Like, I just want to call it a day. I just want to."
She's human still.
I was like, I just want to eat dinner, you know, because literally dinner's my only meal for the same reason I'm that busy, you know. And they're like, "Tiffany, es que está malita, like, you know, está mala, like, está enferma." And I'm like, "Yeah, I understand, but like, I'm tired, you know, like, where's my self-care, you know?" And they're like, "Come on, Tiffany, it's just that one performance." I'm like, you know what, like, I do love performing, so might as well, you know. And it was outside, and it was like in December, so I was freezing as well.
Cold too.
And I was like, "Was ya ni modo, it's a performer thing, you know." I ended up performing, and later I approached the lady whose birthday was, and she was moved by tears. Like she was very happy. Like she was very passionate about like what I was doing. Like she was very thankful that I was there, you know. And that caught my attention because I was like, wow, like I really made her day, you know. Later on, she ended up passing away por la enfermedad que tenía, but like I was able to bring joy. Like I was able to like make her forget with what she was going through. Like I brought joy to her life, you know?
Yeah.
And like being able to do that within the community, because I've been invited to like community centers, the Girl Scouts, to nursing homes, like just everywhere, honestly, like hospitals, you know, and being able to bring them that joy, being able to like make them forget about like what's going on to their day-to-day basis. Even for myself, performing in Ballet Folklórico, I forget what happened yesterday. I'm forgetting what's gonna happen in the future. I'm just focusing that one moment. So I would say that's what has really inspired me as well to continue dancing folklorico. It's that not only am I making myself like happy and content, you know, like I'm also inspiring others to like pursue a passion they have, you know. Like anything is possible if you set your mind to it, you know.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Before I let you go, where can people book you if they want to book you solo, whatever event they got going on here in the DFW area? I don't know if you're willing to travel. Where can they reach you at? I prefer not to do your telephone number, but if you do the Instagram, social media, website, wherever they have, that would be better.
Yeah,
I'm still going to put it in the description.
No, of course, it's through my social media. You could also find me on Google if y'all search me up, but it's
you'll find her.
Instagram, Facebook. Instagram is Tiffany_Y_folklore, which is Tiffany and Folklore. Honestly, that's where you can find me on social media. Y'all could also find me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to trying to still figure it out, but like that's something that within the profession, like within workforce, we use. But honestly, social media, email, text as well.
¿Por qué Tiffany y folklore?
Well, you could say Tiffany folklore because one, folklore, like the definition of folklore is dances of the people. So I wanted to integrate that. When it came to Tiffany, my name is Claudia Tiffany Rodriguez, and like even when it came to school, I would always go by Claudia. And like at home, a lot of people will, like in mi casa, they would call me Tiffany for the same reason that my mom's first name is Claudia, you know. But when I was in school, I was in a very like neutral place of like I having to do this because I have to do this, you know, Claudia, you know, just Claudia, you know. But like Tiffany was very center heart, you know. It was very enriching, and as well, it's very open. When I mean open, a lot of people have a hard time saying Claudia because it's either Claudia or Claudia, and Tiffany was more of an avenue that people could say, you know. And it's basically Tiffany and Folklore. It's me, Tiffany, Folklore, what I do, Tiffany Folklore.
Tiffany Folklore, that's what she does. Dances for the people.
However, I have more exciting news, but I'm actually going to start my company as well.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to start teaching. I finalized a contract, but now I'm going to start teaching at the Victory Community Center, which is located in Fort Worth. But the company name, because I have a name now for the company, it's in English or Spanish, the Heart of Fort Worth, Corazón de Fort Worth, Ballet Folklórico.
Can we get a round of applause? Breaking news right here.
Yes, so
congratulations.
Just stay tuned. There's more info coming to it. But even when it came to the name, a lot of people are like, Tiffany, why don't you go? It's like I had the nickname already. I was like, Tiffany, the Heart of Fort Worth. And I'm like, interesting, you know. Like a lot of people know me as well as Tiffany Folklore, Tiffany from TCU, you know. And I was like, what about my company's name, you know? And that's why I was like, the Heart of Fort Worth Ballet Folklórico group.
The Heart of Fort Worth Ballet Folklórico coming near you. Make sure you enroll your kids. Don't play. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's amazing.
You.
And what better person to lead a class and teach the kids that's more passionate than anybody else that I ever met about folklore.
Oh, thank you.
That is literally, you're like consistently educating people about it. It's amazing. What is an important lesson that you learned doing Folklorico that you would tell your younger self that will help somebody else out? What would that be?
That it wasn't easy being here. It was not easy at all. A lot of people like come up to me and they're like, you're so lucky. Like, you're doing it all. Like, you've been on the news and etc. And I'm like, it wasn't easy. Like, I've had my hardships, you know. Like, even when it came to, like, the interaction with my parents, interactions with students, interaction with staff. Like, it was not easy at all. Like, even when it comes to, like, educating myself, like, there's a cost to it. When it comes to my dresses, there's a cost to it. Like, it's expensive, you know? And it's tricky navigating through that. So I do advocate as well, saying, like, it wasn't easy being at the place I am. It was a lot of pushing through, a lot of sweat and tears. But what you could say what's really gotten me to it, it's being orientated and knowing that no matter what happens in life, things happen for a reason. But, like, no matter what happens, I know I'll be okay. Like, it happens for a reason. Like, maybe a certain situation happened in my life saying, like, why did this happen to me? Why me, you know? Yeah. For example, why did that professor tell me that? Or why did I leave TCU? Or what am I upsetting my parents? But if it weren't for that, or if it weren't for that negative feedback, it wouldn't have helped me to be the person I am now, you know? But as well, being thankful because, for example, I've been in so many avenues, but because of persons like reaching out, you know, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for my parents. I'm thankful for my teachers. Because even when it comes to that, a lot of people, when they're like, we could say, no, I wouldn't necessarily like saying fame, but like to the point that I am now, they're very not, I wouldn't say ungrateful, but they're not very thankful. So, like, for example, I have my main directors, but I've also had interaction with other dancers or with other people, you know? So I'm always thankful for the interactions I have with people, for all the opportunities that I've had within my university, within the community. And even, like I mentioned, there's always going to be negative feedback. But that negative feedback serves for, like, future events. So, like, for example, if I had a certain interaction with a student org, you know, or if I had an interaction with X, Y, and Z. This prepares me for the future.
Awesome. I love it. Usually when I wake up throughout my day, I say something along those lines of, or remind myself, I'm not immortal. I am mortal, and I will die one day. Not to scare me, terrify me, frighten me, none of that. But it's a reality in life. With that, I wish you a very long, prosperous life. However, after everything said and done, what do you want people to think and feel about your life?
Well, that's such a tricky question. I was like, well, I would
that one
say,
wasn't on the list of questions.
that was tricky, but I would just say to believe in yourself, because even then, there's always been doubt within myself. There's always been doubt. There's always that insecurity of like, what are people gonna think, But what do you dig out of that? What do you dig inside of you, deep inside of you, to keep you going forward? Whenever the little weird thoughts keep coming in your head, but you still keep driving forward. Where did that come from? I like to put my faith in God as well, because like I do have a lot in my schedule. Like I'm a full-time student, 19 credit hours, which is the maximum credit hours, seniors, having multiple jobs for the same way to like sustain myself. But just going on a day-to-day basis, knowing like it's all worth it at the end. Like for example, I've seen like how I've gone like through my past. I've seen like, oh, like this led up to this, So trusting the process. I would say trusting the process and believing in yourself, and as well not being afraid to asking for help, because I do tend to be a perfectionist, but like you could be a perfectionist to a certain point, so it's really believing in yourself and being thankful for all the opportunities. Because for example, when I first came in here, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is super exciting, and you're like, wait, like you've been on NBC5, you've been on Telemundo, like what the heck, like what's But like every interaction that I have with everyone, like everyone, like every single person, it's always special to me. I would say I'm a very grounded person, very like down to earth, very humilde. Yeah. And I feel like that has helped me a lot, that I'm very heartwarming, that I'm caring, that I'm passionate for what I do, and that I care. I would say that I'm a very careful and thoughtful person. That's what's really has moved me forward.
So what do you want people to think and feel about your life?
What do I want people to think about my life? It's honestly open up to interpretations, like everybody has their opinions, but just know that what do I want people to know about my life? I don't know, honestly. A lot of people have approached me saying that I'm honestly a legacy, because not a lot of folks get to do what I do, but I would say inspirational, that I'm a leader and that I'm a very caring person. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm answering your question.
I think you are.
But I would just say like I guess the message that I want to leave, it's like just set your mind to it, like if I'm able to be the person I am today, you can be the person that you want to be as well. You just have to set your mind to it and open up those opportunities as well. Because, for example, there was opportunities that opened up for myself because I asked and I pushed through, that I'm goal-driven, hardworking, ambitious. That's what you could say. I'm very ambitious and curious.
Absolutely. No, you answered it perfectly. First of all, I didn't send that question on the list of questions that I was going to ask. My bad.
No,
I always do that.
Good.
I always do that because I want a natural reaction.
Yeah, of course.
But you answered it perfectly. I think people would say it's a legacy, and kind of aligns with the things. There wasn't something there before. All of a sudden, now there is something because of you. There's a course now. There's a degree in Folklorico, and it was never because of you. Only the second one in Texas, close to pretty much the same timeline that you was doing and searching. So
it has really inspired like other universities as well to like open up Ballet Folklórico programs, or like look into it more, to the point that like I remember the other day I was calling my mom. I was like, come on, like fake crying, I was like, they're not calling me for performances. And she's like, why is that? And I'm like, it's because they're calling me to perform. They're calling me to speak. They're calling me to like accept an award. Because now I get like nominated for like Women Encouragement Award. Last year I won TCU's Mission Statement Award.
What?
Like speaking conferences within like the College of Education, like sharing my story. Like, I'm like, Mom, I'm doing it all now. And she's like, wow. Like, I'm so proud of you, you know? And I'm like, yeah. And it's very inspiring because even when I speak to my grandparents, like, I haven't seen them for a hot minute. But, like, even that, when I mention, like, oh, Folklorico, they're like, no, those are for the rich, you know? But it's breaking avenues and breaking barriers. So that's what I'm very adaptable in that I break barriers.
Yeah. No. So, yeah, you definitely answered. We met at one of the Coffee with the Chamber events, by the way. We didn't get to touch about that, but you remember that. Fort Worth, the other.
I'm an ambassador for Visit Fort Worth as well.
Visit Fort Worth, and then
Or
you
Visita.
remember Visita Fort Worth, and then you're a member of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce también, and different things. So, I mean, when I talked to you, Folklorico was the topic, and I was like, this is so freaking cool, because I never, and then I started following you on social media, and then I seen all the things like, oh my goodness, he's done a lot of stuff. And I knew that was just, everybody that sits down here is always like the tip of the iceberg of everything else they have and everything else they've done. And I think it's super amazing, inspiring. And without a shadow of a doubt, Claudia, you are definitely a global Latin factor. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
This was another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast. Remember to subscribe. You got nothing to lose, but you got lots to gain, a lot of knowledge, a lot of inspiration. And remember, we are just like you. We are people. We are the spice in this melting pot that it is the world. Till next time. Bye.